Hey guys, this is Paul O'Brien, and this is the O'Brien Opinion. This podcast, we have a special guest and co-host, and it is none other than Twitter favorite JoshNoneYaBiz, and we are going to be discussing a few of the headlines that are going on in the news today. All right, Josh, say hi to the viewers.
Hey everybody, how's it going?
All right, you guys will be able to find Josh on Twitter. Josh, why don't you give them your Twitter name and all your blog so that they can find you?
Okay, you can find me on Twitter at JoshNoneYaBiz. It's JoshNoneYaBiz. And I just recently started a blog, and you can check that out at gunkelblog.com. It's TheCleblog.com.
All right, guys, let me tell you a little bit about Josh from my perspective so you understand why I'm recording with him today. When I actually asked the people on Twitter and on Facebook if they wanted to do a podcast with me, I got a lot of people recommending Josh. And I can tell you a little bit about him from my perspective, which was back when I first started on Twitter and I actually started campaigning for the Trump campaign, two people stood out. Josh was one of them, and another guy was Scott Pressler. Do you know who Scott is, Josh?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay, you two were the first two that really stood out as far as the Gays for Trump movement and made me feel comfortable speaking out. So I say both of you guys are inspirations as far as a lot of people that may have considered themselves liberal Democrats standing up and saying, you know what, this is not the Democratic Party that I was part of, and feeling more at home with conservatives than with Democrats. But that's why I invited Josh, and Josh gracefully agreed to come on here. So what we're going to do is we're going to get right into it. We're going to start with the biggest story of the week, which is the Manchester terrorist attack that took place at an Ariana Grande concert. So here's the thing. We already know that Sharia savages, and just so you know, when I say Sharia savage, I do not mean Muslim. I mean anybody that supports Sharia law. We all know what Sharia law is. It means gays are slaughtered, women are oppressed, Africans are enslaved, children are raped, rape victims are whipped if they don't have 4 witnesses. So when I say Sharia savage, I'm not talking about Muslims, because I grew up in and there were a lot of Muslims that fled their countries to get away from Sharia law. So when girls automatically assume that a Sharia savage is a Muslim, the first thing I say is, wow, that's pretty bigoted to assume that every single Muslim is a supporter of Sharia law. Because I doubt the rape victim that was whipped was supportive of it. Not the gay guy thrown off the roof of a building was supportive of it. Because they were Muslims, and yet Muslims are persecuted the most by these people. Anyways, so we should have really known that these people had no values, no decency, but they targeted kids. They targeted kids at an Ariana Grande concert. We all know that she appeals to a younger demographic. That had no bearing whatsoever. The suicide bomber targeted it specifically to get at the heart of Western values. They went after the children now. So we've seen them go after gays. We've seen them go after just regular people walking down the street. But now we have seen them come after children. What are your thoughts about this, Josh, as far as the attack?
Well, first I thought it was a horrible attack. Like you said, like it's horrible, period, when they're coming after anybody, but especially children. I think that's just the lowest of lows that you can go. Because the kids, especially over there, you know, a lot of times on Twitter I'm very kind of a smart ass, so to speak, when it comes to horrible liberal policies. And of course, I think the heart of the issue is, you know, radical Islam, but it's the retarded liberal policies that allow it to happen. And these kids, out of everybody, are the most innocent because they're not even old enough to vote yet. So they literally have no control over what's going on in their own country. So that's that. And then as far as the whole actual thing goes, I hate when people come at me and say, oh, you're using a tragedy to, you know, push your political narrative. But at this point, it's not about pushing, or it's not about winning, you know, quote unquote. Like my side's smarter than your side or better than your side. It's just truly, it's like, it's the time, it's like the prayers, and I fully believe in everything, but God also says to be wise. And tons of people into your country that want to ruin your way of life and take over and kill everybody isn't very wise. So that's like that little scenario of it. So I definitely feel for the kids, but to me, yeah, it's not pushing like my political views. It's more like desperation, like, please, people, wake up. You know, it's like, I would rather at this point have their children be slaughtered at concerts than be considered Islamophobic or...
You just said it right there. You just said it, because when is enough enough? I mean, they've already had London, they've had Brussels, they've had Paris, I can't even think of, what was it, Nice, Germany, where there was 80 people slaughtered during a Christmas parade. So when is enough enough? And what you just said right there is they'd rather their children be slaughtered than be accused of Islamophobia or racism. Here's the thing, people. Islam is not a race, so saying racist. These liberals, they have their talking points, they run out and they use them, and they can't even accept the fact that Islam is not a race. As for Islamophobia, I'll be the first to admit it. I'm a total Islamophobe. You know why? Because I'm afraid of Islam. I'm a gay man. I have every reason to be afraid of Islam. So therefore, I have no problem being called that. But, like you just said, at the risk of children being slaughtered, and nothing was done after London to prevent another terrorist attack. Like what you just said, the response was, oh, don't use this to, score political points, and this is a tragedy, we should all unite. I appreciate Katie Hopkins being so blunt and honest by saying, you know what? We're not united. We've never been united. We have the talking points on the media telling everyone how much we're united against, violence at all. Yet they're more interested in defending Muslims, and no one's suggesting Muslims being attacked. What we are suggesting is that we do extreme vetting on anyone coming into our country. They better be happy I'm not in charge of any policy, because every single country that enforces Sharia law, that would automatically mean to me that you cannot come into our country. Unless you can prove you're one of the people being persecuted by the Sharia savages, it's not worth it. And this is going to sound cruel, but to me, 50 good Muslims coming in is not worth it if one Sharia savage hides among them. Because we've all seen that it only takes one to kill over 80 people. So it's just not worth it. I do believe in safe zones. I believe in funding them. And thank God for President Trump. He finally got Saudi Arabia and Kuwait to agree to finance these safe zones in the Middle East. So that way these people are not forced to move and acclimate to Western values, because they can't. A lot of them say they want to, but they don't. And, it's not just the immigrants themselves that we have to worry about now. It's the children. It's the second generation. And all these European attacks, they've all been by the children of immigrants. Now, back to the Manchester story. Did you hear about the sister of the bomber? That she came out and said that the bombing was in response to the Syria airstrikes by the USA? Maybe the dumb bitch should find out that, hey, the USA wasn't attacked. It was the United Kingdom. So what does that have to do with America bombing Sharia savages that are killing Syrians in Syria? She really did say that. And the brother was arrested in Libya, so he obviously had some sort of involvement in this. I'm not sure if you heard that. This just came out today, I think, on Fox News, where the sister gave that interview. But what do you think of that excuse?
About the sister, but I've heard about the brother and the dad, apparently.
Oh.
But they also, their next talking point, because you talk about bringing people into your country that want to kill you, is stupid, and then it's like it's like they cannot grasp the ideology behind it all. You know what I mean? It's like You go and I literally read tweets that like, I don't understand why this keeps happening. And it's like, well, if you actually would inform yourself on what these people believe and the ideology behind it all, it's not shocking. You know what I mean? Like, and that's why I push the hardest, it seems like, on when these attacks happen, because the stupidity, I just can't handle it. You know what I mean? And I know sometimes I probably say some pretty insensitive things, but those kinds of comments to me are just crazy. And then their next talking point is, oh, well, they weren't refugees. And it's like, well, their parents were. You know what I mean?
I hate that. I hate when that excuse comes up, when they try to say, oh, it's homegrown terrorism, acting like they've been there and their family have been there all their lives. And then they just leave out conveniently, oh, by the way, his father was an immigrant, like the Orlando attack. They jumped on that. They were like, oh, well, he was born in America. He wasn't an immigrant. What they failed to mention was that his father was a Taliban-supporting Sharia law savage from Afghanistan that actually ran for president of Afghanistan. How did he get in this country? We still don't know. And did you know a week or two before the Orlando attack, he was actually at the Department of Justice posing photographs with people in the Department of Justice? I'm not saying there's a conspiracy there. I'm just saying, obviously, he had connections with the Democrats to manage to get into the country despite his affiliation with the Taliban. So it doesn't matter to me if it's the father or the child. If the father is a radical and he comes over, he has kids, and he raises his kids to be radicals, it's the same thing to me. So it still relates back to the threat of Islam, the threat of Sharia law. People have to understand that saying, oh, you're racist or oh, you're Islamophobic is not going to change the fact that a lot of people are thinking it. A lot of people are looking up after all of these attacks. I mean, think about it. Under Barack Obama, we had more terrorist attacks on U.S. soil than any other president combined. You know, George Bush had the 9/11 attacks, which was horrible, but Obama had San Bernardino, Orlando, had the bombing attempts in Boston, and then he had the ones in New York, New Jersey, the mall attacks in Minnesota and in Washington State, which, by the way, the Washington State terrorist was not even a U.S. citizen, and he voted for Hillary Clinton. So we'll get down to that voter fraud another time, but just so everyone out there listening knows, yes, these people were voting while they were here. They were also given driver's licenses and benefits by the Democratic Party. That's what they campaigned for, but they like to pretend, oh, they don't get anything. They're not legal citizens. They don't have U.S. citizenship. My brother works in California as a mailman. He can tell you they do receive benefits. They receive food stamps, welfare, driver's licenses, and voter registry cards. And that, by the way, is the reason California will not let anyone audit their votes. When Michigan, when it came out that there was voter fraud, and they kept saying, well, you know, Hillary Clinton beat Trump by 3 votes. And, oh, he's trying to say that illegal immigrants voted, but he has no proof. Show me proof they didn't vote. Because if you really wanted to embarrass him, come out with the proof and say, hey, you know what? Let's end speculation right here. Here's our voter rolls. You will not a single illegal immigrant that voted. But they will not do it. They will not show to even an independent auditor their voter rolls. And there's a reason for that. They have something to hide. They're terrified of it. Okay, that was the Manchester. We're about to end this segment really quick, but in the last 3 minutes, I want to move on to, we're talking about Sharia law. Did you hear about the Linda Sarsour protest yesterday? It was led by Milo, Pam Geller, and a really cool person I'd never heard of named Nomi Darwish, who is a human rights campaign activist. She actually is an ex-Muslim, and she actually educates people on what Sharia really is. Did you hear about this?
I did hear about that, and I think that's something that I think we need more of. You know what I mean? I feel like girls want to get out there and march for, you know, more rights, as they say it. They're always concerned that all their rights are being taken away, but yet they don't march against things like Sharia that they welcome with open arms that would take away all their rights. You know what I mean? So I think if I was to ever get more involved, that's something I could see myself doing, is taking, because that's like, those are actual things to be really concerned about. I'm not concerned about which bathroom is going to get things like that. I'm concerned about coming into our country, going in our way of life. They all say, oh, that'll never happen here. Well, it's like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. And all you have to do is look at what's happening in Europe, where they have go zones where police can't even enter, and the women are being raped, and you know, people, you know, besides just terrorist attacks alone, they're coming in and destroying their cities. You know what I mean? And their own citizens aren't allowed to go in certain areas anymore. And you can find those videos of just mattresses and trash and people literally pooping in the streets. And,
it's disgusting. I've seen what you're talking about. And by the way, the protest that we're talking about yesterday, outside of that Linda Sarsour commencement speech, you know what you didn't see? You didn't see violence. You didn't see anybody being attacked, because the conservatives that were actually protesting were there to educate people. They weren't there to harm anyone. They weren't there to shame anyone. They brought an actual activist who lived the life, who actually saved lives in the Middle East. They brought her, and they brought an actual doctor who has actually treated people that had their genitals mutilated because of this law. And the people were so disrespectful to this woman. She was an ex-Muslim, from the Middle East, and when she tried to get up there and educate all the people that were going in to see Linda Sarsour, who supports Sharia law, she was treated so disrespectfully. But what you didn't see were conservatives running around pepper spraying supporters of Linda Sarsour. Didn't see them attacking the elderly or attacking women. They stood up, they educated, they gave their speech. Nothing bad happened. And yet liberal media jumps on this Montana election about the reporter that was slammed. Let me just tell you, by the way, not only would I have voted for that guy if I lived in Montana, but if that reporter had, say, Don Lemon or Anderson Cooper, and he got body slammed, I would have sent campaign money to him. Just because that is awesome. It finally shows the liberal media, who ignored the attacks on conservatives by liberals, that we're not going to take it anymore. And they have revealed their double standard once again by saying how he should be arrested and how he should have to drop out. He won over 7 points, I believe, in the actual election. We're going to continue this, by the way, on the next portion of the podcast, because we're ending. Josh, stay with me for 2 seconds while I load up the next offline. All right, guys, this is Paul O'Brien, and this is the O'Brien Opinion. I am back with JoshNoneYaBiz, and we are going through the latest headlines. We just finished our conversation about the Manchester attack and, of course, Linda Sarsour with the protest that was led by Milo. Now we're going to be discussing a couple of other things that are going on in the headlines. Last night, the Montana election for the open seat in Congress took place, And the GOP candidate who was expected to lose by Democrats for body slamming a journalist won, and he won by over 7 votes. All right, Josh, let's discuss this, okay? Democrats had a lot riding on this. It wasn't like they actually expected they were going to win a Montana seat because they were popular. They expected Trump to be so unpopular that it would turn the people against the Republican candidate who was a big Trump supporter. He ended up winning even after body slammed this journalist. What does that tell you about what's going on in politics right now?
I think the Democrats are in serious denial. You know what I mean? Like, they live in an echo chamber, and they just do. It's like during the campaign, they weren't listening to the American people. They were trying to tell the American people what to think and what they wanted and everything. And they're still doing the same thing, and it's all backfiring in their face. You know, I didn't know anything about the guy, but when I found out he, whatever he did to that report, what was it? Body slammed him?
Well, according to reports, Fox News.
Not for me.
Fox News says he was. Fox News says he was choke slammed, and The Guardian says he was body slammed, so they can't even make up their mind it was.
Yeah, what's another thing, just like what we're going to talk about with the whole Russia thing, they hardly ever have any actual evidence to back anything. It's like, to me, at this point, they're just finding any reason to attack any Republican or any Trump supporter, any means they can, and every single time it's backfiring in their face. And I you know, everyone says, you know, Trump always said we're going to get tired of winning. I always wonder if Democrats are going to get tired of losing.
I would hope so. Now, you mentioned the Russia investigation. So what we just read in the news today is that they're now targeting Jared Kushner. What this tells me is that they have nothing to anyone else, so they're moving on to someone else, and they're not going to find anything on him. And this is going to implode. As you know, we've been discussing on Twitter Seth Rich, and we believe that Seth Rich may be the leak to WikiLeaks regarding the leaks from the Democratic National Convention and Committee. Of course, they're trying to blame Russia for it, but they have no evidence to support it. They have no evidence to support Russia collusion between Russia and the Trump campaign. So eventually, this Russia thing is going to implode on the Democrats, and it's going to implode because more and more people are questioning what happened to Seth Rich. Let me ask you what your opinion is on the Seth Rich case.
Okay, there's a lot to unravel, and I know we don't have a lot of time, but I feel like you know, the whole Russia thing, Hillary had been talking about it since back, you know, during her campaign. But a few points. One, Obama was president for 8 years. He didn't bother to do anything about it. So that shows, obviously, you know, they want to keep blaming Russia where they had their opportunity right there to do something about it. Two, I believe WikiLeaks or someone put out how they created the whole Russia story on Trump, I think, once he won. Three, the Seth Rich thing, there's way more evidence than that. I know everybody wants to call us conspiracy theories and things like that, but there's a lot more evidence that would say he did. I mean, he had contact with WikiLeaks. Julian Assange made a reference, you know, that it wasn't Russia and that they had, he didn't say his name, but it was an interview, and he basically, in my opinion, was saying it was Seth Rich that gave it to him. And then you have Seth Rich, you know, he gets shot in the back, robbed, supposedly, but he wasn't missing anything like that. And then his family, supposedly, the media wants to say they don't want anyone looking into it, but yet the guy that's doing all the talking is someone from in the DNC that I believe had connections with Hillary at some point. So I think it totally makes sense. And then in WikiLeaks, John Podesta was seen in WikiLeaks saying that, you know, he would be willing to make an example of a leaker. You know what I mean? Or something along those lines. And then my biggest thing is, like, of course, I think the whole Russia narrative is made up. I mean, they've had 16 agencies or whatever, supposedly. So by now, where's the evidence, you know? And they just keep putting it off. So to me, it's like they're terrified. But my biggest thing, though, is, of course, we want to get down to who actually did it, because if they did have him killed for the leaks, then they need, you know, to not have that go unpunished. But what always gets me, though, is they always want to attack the messenger, and they always avoid the corruption that was exposed in the leaks. And then they never ever want to point the finger of blame at Obama, who, like I said, was president for 8 years. That's all on him. You know, they didn't even want to turn their servers over. You know, the FBI had asked for their servers. Why didn't they turn it over to him if they were so worried about an interference? So that, to me, says a lot. Like, they know that it wasn't the Russians, and they're trying to, as they can, to cover up whatever really did happen.
Now, you know, here's what's suspicious to me about Seth Rich. You got the family. Okay, right after Seth was murdered, his family went on national TV and also local television begging the public for info on his death because they knew nothing. They were asking for info. There was no DNC spokesperson there. They weren't, involved with the DNC at all. Okay, so then WikiLeaks offers a $25,000 reward for information leading to the arrest or capture of Seth's killer. It's only after this reward and the exposure that reward brought that all of a sudden the DNC is speaking for his family. So they're trying to say that the family doesn't want, anything being aired about Seth WikiLeaks. But here's the weird part. His family released a video onto the internet where they thanked people for trying to find out what happened to their son. His cousin is actually talking in public forum that he believes that Seth was the leak. I understand that there's a brother that is upset about it. And here's my theory, and this is just a theory. There's no proof behind it. I believe that if the family is afraid, it's because the DNC has told the family that if Seth is indeed the leak, they will be in danger. And all they have to do is look at Antifa and these crazy rioters to believe it's true. Because we've seen crazy come out of the alt-left, just attacking elderly and assaulting women. So why would they feel that they could be attacked if their son was responsible for Hillary Clinton's defeat and, of course, the DNC's fall in power? But that's just a theory of mine. I don't think any parent would want the private investigator hired, which, by the way, was paid for by the same people that are trying to find out what happened to Seth. I don't believe the parents would say, we want the investigation stopped. It's an unsolved murder. Obviously, the DC police have no idea what happened because they have no clues or any leads. And I'll remind everybody out there that the DC police board has John Podesta's sister-in-law as a member of it. It just gets more and more suspicious. The law firm that is attached to Seth Rich's family is linked to the DNC also. I believe it was the law firm that did Hillary Clinton's taxes, in which Loretta Lynch used to work for. So, I mean, there's just way too many coincidences. Also, the bar owner said that the police have never interviewed him or asked to see the camera footage of the night Seth was murdered. So it goes beyond just conspiracy theories. There's more evidence and circumstantial evidence supporting something bad happened to him, and it was a connection to the DNC than the Russia story, for example, which has no evidence whatsoever. But we're never going to get to the bottom of it because now the liberals have decided to attack Sean Hannity. They're trying to protest him and boycott the advertisers that advertise on his show. I think because they got rid of Bill O'Reilly, they believe that they can get rid of Hannity. What do you think of this going on? Because as we know, Bill O'Reilly lost his 20-year job with Fox News because a bunch of liberals that don't even watch the network threatened to boycott the advertisers, and now it looks like they're doing the same thing over Sean Hannity. So what's your opinion on all this?
It's not surprising at all to me. The whole reason that kind of switched from being a liberal to conservatives was because liberals have destroyed the name liberal. They're not liberal at all. They're, to me, opinion, they are the they're the fascists, and they're the ones wanting to silence free speech, and they're wanting to silence the truth. And so I'm really not surprised that they're attacking him. You know what I mean? That's all they know to do these days. They have a message. They don't have rebuttals. They have insults and attacks, and that's all they have to go on. What bothers me is advertisers that are caving into them, because that's showing them that they can get their way by throwing, fits, and which is what I said the other day when the kids were walking out of Mike Pence's speech. That's what you get when you live your first 8 years of your adult life under Obama. You know what I mean? You're entitled, you're informed, you think you can walk out on anything, you can be disrespectful, you can cry and whine, and eventually you're going to get your way. And that's not how it is. So from them, it's not shocking whatsoever, but it pisses me off that the advertisers cave into them.
You know what's crazy, Josh, is that the liberals believe if they don't like the facts, they can call it hate speech, and that will automatically dismiss anything that is being said. But the fact is, it doesn't matter if you don't like the facts. Facts don't care about anyone's feelings. They are fact for a reason. And if you don't like it, you should try to change things. Don't try to tell people who they should and shouldn't listen to, what should offend them, and what they should or shouldn't care about. And that is what the Democrats have been doing, and that's probably why they've lost so many people, including you and I. They insist on what makes us tick, and they don't bother to ask us what makes us tick. They just assume. And you know what they say about assumptions, right?
I think I've I've heard.
Makes an ass out of you and me.
Oh yeah, yeah. I remember that now. Yeah, going back to that, like the whole, I'm thinking back now, like to different things, and I wrote about my first blog, Waking Up, about how back whenever I identified as a liberal, I literally got all my news from late night TV shows and comedians, and I see so much of that, and the people that attack me on Twitter, you know what I mean? They'll be talking about Kohlberg or someone else, and it's like, obviously that's literally where they get their news, or CNN, or Huffington Post or New York Times, was just constantly being proven to be releasing false information, or anonymous sources or memos that don't exist, and different things like that is where they're getting their information. So I always look back and think about stuff like that. I had a point and I totally got lost because they're just all over it. Oh, I was getting someone on Twitter actually the other day. They literally wrote on there, they believed in free speech unless it was hate speech or misinformation. Legit thought that was like, and I told them, well, for one, that's not how it works, and for two, that would never work because the left will label, like you said, anything they disagree with as hate speech, and then, you know what I mean, everyone's silent except for them. So you realize how, you know, they're the party of projection. So anything they say is basically what they're doing. That's what the Democrats do, and that's how it is, like, calling everyone they disagree with a Nazi, and therefore it's okay to physically attack them, and the same with free speech, and they don't realize how much like Nazis they actually are.
The sad thing is, man, is that the liberals are very good at boycotting, and the conservatives have proven time and time again that they are much better at it. They're much more organized. If anyone needs proof of this, I would suggest look at CNN, which went from being the #1 cable news network to not even in the top 10. Look at the NFL, which lost record ratings when that stupid quarterback started sitting on his ass or kneeling during the national anthem. Look at Starbucks losing record money. Look at Pepsi, the CEO forced to apologize for the comments made about conservatives and Trump supporters. I mean, it doesn't matter what they do. What makes people upset is like what you said. The advertisers that are pulling out, they're pulling out thinking that their stock is going to drop if these people stop buying their merchandise. What they don't realize is there's a bigger half of the country that will stop if they pull out because they caved into liberal demands and makes them look weak. And I've been part of a protest last night on Twitter where I think it was cars.com were notified that to appease about 15 million radical liberals, they lost about 60 million conservatives. So that was a really bad business decision, but they're never going to learn because these people believe that they speak for the majority. They don't care if their party has lost all power. They will continue telling you what's important to you, what offends you, and what you care about. Okay, we've got about 1 minute left, Josh. I want you to once again give everyone out there your Twitter handle and also your blog so that way they can check out your work.
Okay. One more thing real quick about the Russian thing is they want to throw out the Russian thing, but if you stop and think about it, they've lost the House, the Senate, White House, and like 1,000 seats under Obama. So I just wanted to make sure that was thrown out there. But yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at JoshNoneYaBiz, and I have a new blog. It's called thegunkelblog.com.
And I will be adding that onto the information so that people listening, if they didn't catch it from Josh himself, you can just check out the description and you will find the address to get to that blog and also Twitter handle so that you can follow him. All right, Josh, thank you very much for appearing on this podcast. I hope we can do it again soon. Just let everyone know. This guy is a great guy. I suggest if you're not following him on Twitter, look him up and follow him. He's very, very informative. And like I said, he was a huge inspiration on me, motivating me to actually speak out and not keep my opinions to myself. And this, of course, has been the O'Brien Opinion. Thanks.